G'day, Stu here from UAVfutures, and today, well, we're checking out this little baby boy right here. Well, actually, it's just the BB66, that's the name of it. Isn't it cute? But what this is a micro-sized FPV racing drone, or I guess FPV drone, not so much racing. But the exciting thing about this one, it's actually brushless. So usually this is like Tinywhoop size. Some of those things, they're all brush motors. Those motors tend to burn out. What we're going to be doing today, we're going to be checking out the BB66, and to be honest, I've already been flying it around a little bit. That's why it's got a different battery connector on here and, you know, some blue tack on the antenna. But we'll cover all that in a quick squeeze on the bench. But we're going to be checking this bad boy out, and then we're going to be taking it over to Trevor's, flying it around and checking out his pit basement track as well. So I can't wait to show you guys that. So definitely stay tuned, because if you're after the market for a little micro drone, let's find out if this is the right one for you and if it's going to work indoors, especially if it's raining wherever you live or it's really cold, you've got a lot of snow or something like that. Alright, let's get started, kick it off and check it out on the bench. Alrighty, so here it is on the bench for a bit of a bench breakdown. And Stuart, what is this horrible bit of goop on the top? Yes, sirs and lasses, I've done a few little mods and mucked around with it a little bit before filming it, but you guys, I'm sure you're going to be able to see past something like a little bit of blue tack or something like that. Now pretty much what this is, it's a little plug and play racer, because it doesn't come with a receiver. You know, it's got your full FPV action, all that sort of stuff. It's Tinywhoop size, absolutely tiny. You can see it's got some prop guards on there. It's got 4 little tri-propellers, and probably the big one for me, it's got brushless motors. It runs on a 1S battery, and those brushless motors traditionally in the past offer a lot more power than their brushed counterparts, but usually they're nowhere near this small anyway. Now if we stick it on the scales, let's find out how much it weighs. And look, I probably do have a few grams of blue tack on there. I added an extra little battery cable, because we will talk about that as well, and I do have a little receiver tucked into the side, so it's coming in at about 31 grams. So I'd say it's about 27, 28 grams if you didn't have those other little receivers and the little things that I've done to it. Now what we should do, let's quickly rattle through the components. So it's called the BB66 because it's 66 millimeters from motor to motor, and those tiny little motors, I'll flash a picture on the screen, are 15,000 kV. Now that's some of the highest kV I've ever seen in a brushless motor, and to be honest, I have no idea how it's going to perform on such tiny little props like this. So what we've got, these props, they're just little 3-blade props, nothing too special, bit of a bull nose on the outside. You can see we've got our carbon fiber, I guess, bumper guards. That's going to, the prop protectors, that's going to be really handy if you're flying this around indoors, which is sort of the environment I'm expecting most people to fly this around with. Then quickly, if we just rattle off some of the components in the middle, we've got our 6 amp ESC in the middle, that's D-Shot. I've put my own little receiver in here, and let me tell you, it was a nightmare trying to put a receiver in. When I say nightmare, it took a lot longer than some of others. You've got to take everything apart to really get access to the flight controller on the top. And on the top, you've just got your tiny F3 flight controller, and that's literally the brand, or Teeny I should say. I'll link it down below anyway, but that's just the standard sort of F3 flight controller, and that tiny 20 by 20 size stack. And then on the top, what we've got is just simply a little printed hood of TPU with our FPV camera VTX sort of thing in the middle. Now it's only 25 milliwatts, and the reason I've got all this blue tack gap sort of gunk on here is because when I was flying around, it was very, very loose, and this thing was just swiveling from side to side, causing my picture to drop out, and I was really worried about it getting ripped off, so I was, you know, kind of a little bit concerned, is it going to break? Now if we quickly talk about the design of the thing, I really like this. You know, I like that they're trying to do some brushless sort of stuff in a small size. I am a little bit worried about flight times, because these motors are going to probably be considerably hungry than some of the brushed ones, because I know brushed Tinywhoops, look, they don't get the best flight times. I'm expecting these to get even less. When we talk about the quality of the thing, I'm going to give it like a 7.5 out of 10. I'm pretty impressed. All the solder joints are nice and shiny. The TPU mount is pretty clean. The only other little touches I'd like to see is if it had, like, you know, I didn't like it how loose this was, and putting a receiver in here was a bit of a nightmare. Now some other things to mention too, the reason I put a different battery on here is because this is a battery that I've been using. You know, that's a 600 milliamp one, and it came with just some of those little Tinywhoop ones. I'll flash your pictures on the screen with the ones that it came for, but those I was not getting very much flight time whatsoever, so I did a little bit of mod so I could use some other batteries, and it was still very, very hungry. So what we're going to do now, let's jump over to Trevor's house. That's the boring bench breakdown out of the way. Let's jump over to Trev's house, fly it around, and sort of get some impressions on what it's like with the BB66. You know, is it your indoor racer, or should you be looking for something else? Alright, let's cut over to Trevor's house in 3, 2, 1. Trev!
Yeah, downstairs!
Okay.
Gonna light up the track.
Radio out here in the Trevor's workshop. What's going on? We're going to be flying around the B66. I'll show you guys some DVR, a bit of a sneak peek. We've been putting in a lot of work. I should say Trevor's been putting in a lot of work. but I'll take some of the credit. We're going to fly around in the underground. What's the name of this track? The dungeon track? Trevor's
The pit.
The pit. We're going to be flying around in the pit, the test track. We'll see how it goes. We've got the B66. I'll fly it around, and then we'll hand it over to the grumpy man and see what he thinks as well. All right, let's do it. Okie dokie, so here we go. Here's a bit of a sneak peek, and this thing just eats the batteries. Even though you plug them in full charge, I don't know what it is, maybe it was the battery that came with it or something like that, but this thing just absolutely gobbles them down. And what I did find, it was actually a little bit disappointing when I was trying to fly this thing around. It was almost like it had this really strange power where sometimes it could be really zippy and other times I felt really sluggish. And I've never really struggled to talk about a quad so much where I say it feels fast and it feels slow. So it feels, I guess, the way a fast quad feels, that you can't slow it down, but it also feels slow, like, you know, it sort of goes crazy, and then I'm not too sure what's going on and whether that's just with the props or the calibration or something like that. But I found, you know, this is a bit of a sneak peek at the underground track. I found I just couldn't really navigate it around, and I tried many times to fly the little BB66 around under Trevor's indoor track. So for me, it just wasn't working there. So I thought, well, we probably should take it outside and see if it's any better suited to outdoors. So here, look at the battery again. Definitely, it's only been up for like 30 seconds, and it's already very low. So here, it seems to be going slow one direction, and then we tilt it around, and it just seems to sort of hammer back the other direction. So I don't know what's going on. So it was very peculiar. Now look, it didn't have any oscillations or anything like that, but overall I expected it to fly better because I want a fantastic indoor brushless micro FPV drone. It's going to be great for a lot of people out there. And this one, I just wasn't feeling it. I actually found the experience to be less than a traditional brush Tinywhoop sort of style micro. Now, I did try to get this thing to work on a few different days, so let's cut to that when I took it out again. Rightio, out here in the field because, look, it didn't work. I felt it was too fast in Grumpy Trev's little workshop. You know, so for flying this thing around the pit, I was actually struggling a little bit. I just wanted to go, so we're going to rip it around. We're outdoors. It's not too windy, so we'll see how it goes with the B66. Then we'll hand it over to Grumpy Trev for a second time and see how it goes outdoors. All right, let's show you guys some DVR and have some fun. Okie dokie, so here we go flying around. This is a place I've been flying a lot lately. Really like this place, but this is why I changed out the battery lead on there. So I could put some bigger batteries on there and see if we could just get some more flight time, and you can see just how quickly it is eating them up. So it does have a little bit of pep, and it does feel okay in a straight line out like this, like, you know, it was a smooth experience. But the one part I don't like is, you know, if you're out in a place like this, you probably want a quad that's going to perform a lot better anyway. So it's sort of missing the mark in both worlds. It's not, I guess, smooth enough or agile enough or something like that for that really close proximity things around the house, and it's, you know, not the easiest to fly in that sort of area. But if you take it out to a larger space, there's a little bit of acro. If you take it out to a larger space like this, well, you might as well just have a bigger quad. So I feel like it's sort of it's running up to some very stiff competition overall. Look, I really wasn't, I guess, too impressed with it. Some other people might find some uses for it, but for me, I found it a little bit of a letdown. Alrighty, so that was a pretty short little flight, but we'll hand over to Grumpy Trev, sitting here with the fly net on. What did you think about, oh, there we go. Well, you saw it zipping around, but you're about to have a fly around, so what do you think of this little bad boy?
Nearly as big as the flies that are going around here at the moment, but goes all right, this little thing. We did find it a little bit too fast for the pit, but outside it looks okay, so... Alright,
let's do it. Let's strap you into the goggles and get some impressions.
I've got to take your head off for that.
Yep. Alright, I'm going to set it up and get you a new battery, and then you can zip it around. Rock and roll. Let's do it with the BB66.
It's not harming.
Alright, I'll go plug and replug.
Don't think much of it so far.
Alright, you're good.
Oh, jeez. Oh, I don't like the lens on it. Fisheye lens. Oh, Jesus. Makes you feel a bit woozy flying that.
Is there any oscillations or anything like that?
No, it's quite smooth to fly. I've had better lenses though on a small thing.
Yep. What about give it some full stick and tell me what you think about the power?
Nothing. Its power is pretty crappy. Oh, that is full stick. Look at that. That's nothing. I can't fly it. That's it. That's flat. It must have been a battery.
No, trust me, mate. That's how short those flight times are getting.
Kidding, that was...
All right, Trev. So that's it. That's your battery used. What do you think about that one?
Not a lot. Look, it's small. It's really is gutless. I was pushing that and nothing was happening. It really is a fisheye lens. One set position, so when you start getting motoring, you can't see where you're going. Yeah. It really sucked through that battery. I'm not impressed with this. I think there's a lot better micros out there.
Yep.
For the money.
All right, give it a Grumpy Trev rating out of 10.
Give it a 2.
Okay. And what about for value-wise?
About the same. I don't think there's any value in that at all. So.
Alrighty. So do you think they've gone too far with the brushless? Like there is a point when sometimes it is better to have brushed?
Well, I think so. It's they're really tiny motors. They just didn't seem to have the grunt that it needed.
Yep.
Like it was, well, we're outdoors here. We're flying the thing a bit further, so it really was too fast for us indoors. Outdoors, it was going okay, but it had nothing left. Like you punch it out and it just sat there. So.
Yep. So maybe there's a limit to how small you can actually make them brushless before brush does a better job?
Could be.
What do you have to say to Cal? Because Cal's actually ordered one of these. What words have we got for him?
You're a d***head.
Alrighty, so there it is. There's my BB66 full review, and overall I would say, look, I like the little craft. I think it's done right. Its flight characteristics are okay. It doesn't have as much performance as I was hoping, but it's in this really strange place where I felt like inside it was too difficult to fly. For me and my skills, I guess, when it comes to micros anyway, I wasn't good enough to pilot to rip this thing around really, really quickly, and probably when I took it outdoors, I found myself wanting something that had more power. So because you had so much more space, I wanted something that was a little bit quicker. So it's sort of stuck in this strange interim place where I didn't really feel like I had the right environment to fly it around. But my biggest letdown was the flight times. Even when I put a bigger battery on here and stuff, these little brushless motors, I don't think they're as good as the brush ones when it comes down to this size, because look, it was very, very power hungry. The performance, I guess, was just average, and the flight times, you know, that was it. You turn it on, felt like you just went for a little hover, and then it was all over. So I don't know. I know some other people have had more success with these, but for me, it was just the flight time that was sort of letting it down. So maybe if you've got a stockpile of batteries, these might be for you. You might want to delve into brushless. You know, maybe you can do some things. I know they've got a light version, which might fly a little bit better. I'll link those down below anyway. But for me, yeah, I just found it a little bit difficult. Anyway, what do you guys think about it? Drop it down in the comments down below. I know I've seen some other reviewers absolutely rip this thing, and they're big fans of it. So I'm excited to see where this is sort of going to go in the future. Subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying! Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page, because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus Velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.